It's really great to be with you today to launch the first Culture Collective strategy for Sheffield. As you know, compacts came from the 2019 UK Cultural Cities Inquiry. This document made a number of recommendations for how culture can contribute to Britain's cities and how that contribution can be sustained. As always, this meant getting the right partners round the table to act as champions for and custodians of cultural provision in cities. The Arts Council and Department for Culture, Media and Sport supported 20 compacts across England in 1920, and these covered a range of geographies, towns like Tunbridge Wells, cities like Newcastle, Nottingham and Exeter, and combined authorities like the West of England, and of course, here in Sheffield, the Culture Collective. We were really impressed that the private sector, in the form of the Sheffield Property Association, stepped forward to lead the compact consortium here. But we weren't surprised, given the great partnership work that was already happening between the association and the cultural sector. I remember, for example, spending a really enjoyable evening a couple of years ago at 2 Temple Place at the London launch of Museum of Sheffield's John Ruskin Art and Wonder Show, which was put on in partnership with Sheffield Property Association. Now, the COVID pandemic has, of course, been especially difficult for the cultural sector, with many plans being put on hold, careers interrupted, and opportunities lost. This has been the same for the development of compacts, who've not been able to develop at the pace many would have liked. But whilst that pace of development has slowed, the need for compacts to help deliver a strong recovery has accelerated. And in the refresh of the Cities Inquiry, which we did in September last year to note and respond to the impact of COVID, we saw the very real impact of compacts, particularly in the way that they've been able to support partners, local government, and the freelance community, working together to respond. Now let's create the Arts Council's 10-year strategy. Commits us to place-based cultural development, and we want to support more places to have the capacity to put culture at the heart of their plans for the future. We're really heartened that the first phase of compacts have reorientated themselves to focus on leading their cultural sectors to come through the pandemic and to set out a vision for how culture can help lead recovery and how it can support the many communities that they have in their cities. We think compacts have a role to play also in helping government get the most from its place funds, things like Stronger Towns, the Levelling Up Fund and the Community Renewal Fund. These programmes put culture at the heart of a vision for a place, and compacts can build that capacity in place to bring forward great ideas for funding. They can help give government confidence that this money will be well used. And that's why the launch of Culture Collective's strategy for Sheffield is so timely and necessary. The strategy really usefully sets the wider context and the necessity for cultural development and recognises the potential for culture and creativity to help Sheffield not only recover from the pandemic, but also become the very best possible version of itself. It's always helpful as a funder and partner to be able to see clearly what the priorities are for a place, and this strategy does exactly that. It's especially helpful for us, and I'm sure for other potential funders and partners, to see your cultural capital priorities so clearly set out. It's also great to have a range of voices speaking up for culture, particularly if they're not the usual advocates. Government expects the Arts Council to champion the power of culture to cities, their communities and their economy. It's so much more powerful when it comes from the business or other sectors, the unexpected voice. Now, Sheffield is a profoundly creative city, which has up until now not utilised its creative riches to its best advantage. I hope this strategy is the catalyst that not only enables that to happen, but which also allows Sheffield to play the critical role it needs to within the cultural and creative life of the wider Sheffield City region. We at the Arts Council will try and support the work of the Compact as much as we can, and will continue to collaborate with the city to help it achieve that enormous potential.